here's a fun fact for you. Did you know Volvo is Latin for I roll? Which, conveniently enough, if you were to roll a car, a Volvo is probably a good one to do then. So I have returned yet again for another rambling podcast about, well, loosely based around cars. Well, I suppose it's mostly about cars. I don't really talk about anything else. I don't have any other interests. So ladies, you know, if you're looking for a man, you better like cars. So this episode, I'm actually driving my car. This episode is brought to you by the letter F and the numbers 1 and 4. Ford Focus 1.4 LX. I tried doing this before. I think it may have been the second episode, well, what was supposed to be the second episode of this podcast. And when I'd finished talking to myself in my car, I then realized the battery had died on my microphone. So I just had 35 minutes of the sound of silence. How are we all anyway? Good. Hope everyone's keeping safe and well. We are slowly but surely getting back to some form of normality. I believe some shops are open today. I think bars can serve pints outside, although most of them are doing that anyway. They can legitimately sell them outside and you can sit outside them. A little bit off topic there, I suppose, but yeah, it's nice to get back to normal. Hopefully, one thing I am hoping for is the first weekend of next month, which is June. We're in May, right? Yeah, June, which is 2 weekends away. Hopefully we'll get the first Cars and Coffee of, would it be the first one of 2021? Did we get one in January? I can't quite remember. Time has lost all meaning to me. Anyway, enough talking about things that haven't happened yet. Let's talk about some car stuff. The first thing I should probably jump off with is, I'm not sure if it was my last episode or the episode previous, I talked about how excited I was about the expected return of Bristol cars, the obscure, low-volume, luxury/sports car manufacturer from the UK, who Jeremy Clarkson managed to piss off famously. There's an 850R. Oh, sorry. I was driving by it. Unfortunately, I won't get a picture of that for the Instagram account. Reincarnation, if you don't follow me, which I assume you do. Yeah, and it all sounds promising. Someone had claimed to have bought the intellectual property and the tooling to produce the Speedster, the Fighter, and the 411, and then they were going to progress into making an electric Bristol going into the future. But it now turns out that might actually be a bunch of bollocks, because the liquidators who took over all the liquid, I don't know how this stuff works. I'm not a financier. But anyway, when it went all tits up and they had to claim bankruptcy, the liquidators that came in, they've come out saying that, I think it's Jason Wharton, who was the man claiming he was going to bring back Bristol. Apparently, he doesn't own any of the intellectual property or the names or the rights to any of the Bristol products. He bought some stuff from an auction that they had for Bristol, for the stuff that was left over from the ashes of the original Bristol. And yeah, apparently he has no rights to build or claim to build a new Bristol. And the worrying thing about it is there are adverts out there on Car and Classic, for example, where they're taking up to £50,000 deposits to be front of the queue for one of their new Bristols, which it seems now aren't actually happening at all. So if you have put oh, there's a Jag Mark II. Can I get my phone quickly enough? Come on, I can get this one for the Instagram. Come on, quick! Do it, John! Quick! Come on, technology, don't fail me now. Oh, bollocks! Well, I didn't manage to get a picture, but a Jag Mark II did just drive by me there. A nice kind of wine-coloured one. You just have to take my word for that. What was I talking about? Yeah, Bristol. So, yeah, apparently, yeah, if you put a deposit down on a new Bristol, I'd get onto your lawyer pretty quickly, because that money may or may not have disappeared. But I'm going to hold the faith. It'd be nice to see Bristol return, as I said in one of my previous episodes, because they're a bit eccentric, and they made, well, I wouldn't have said I enjoyed all of the products that came out of Bristol. I did enjoy some of them, most notably the Fighter. in recent years, because it was a gull-wing doored rear-wheel drive sports car with a Dodge Viper V10 in the front of it. So, you know, that would have been nice to have back again. What else has been happening? I was stumbling across a few articles earlier, or yesterday, or whatever day it was, and I saw a thumbnail which I thought was of the Gto Engineering Squalo, which I talked about a couple times before, which is a kind of a modern interpretation of a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase that Gto Engineering are going to be building from the ground up, engine, chassis, everything. I just thought this was another story about that, but then it turns out it isn't. It's another company going for a similar vibe. It's a company called RML Engineering, and they're going to do their own sort of interpretation of a modern 250 GT short wheelbase. It's just going to be called the RML short wheelbase, or SWB, as is the acronym, the abbreviation that all of us car nerds know is for short wheelbase. Yeah, the thing about their one though is like, so Gto Engineering are ground up. It's essentially a new car, and it sounds very interesting. They're saying their V12 is going to rev out to 10,000 RPM, etc. What these RML lads are doing is they take a Ferrari 550 Maranello and then hack it to pieces and put their own body on it and charge you a ludicrous amount of money, I'd assume. There was no price in the article I read. I don't know how I feel about that now. I'm a big fan of the Ferrari 550. It's one of the few, well, it was the last manual only front-engined V12 Ferrari produced. Obviously, you could get a manual 599. Good luck finding one of them. And you could option a manual in a 575. But again, a lot of people went for the F1 gearbox. But beside the point. Whereas, you know, a company like Singer, for example, I know are slowly but surely eating into the stockpile of 964 911s to make recreations of their resto mod 911s. But at least with 964s, there is a shit ton of them, and also there's plenty of ratty ones that not only benefit from a back to bare bones restoration, and then obviously the flim flam that Singer put on top of it. Whereas, okay, the 550 wasn't a limited run Ferrari by any stretch of the imagination, but Ferrari aren't exactly known for doing massive build numbers regardless. Sacrificing a good, even a not so good Ferrari 550 to make a fake old Ferrari 550 is, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. You kind of get the whiff. You know, when you read about some of these independent, generally British, I must say, sports car manufacturers trying to, you know, bring out this new elaborate product, and then it goes nowhere, and people end up losing loads of money. I get a whiff of that from this RML 250 thing. If you had the cash, which I said, it's going to be a lot of money. If you had the cash, why you would get one of those over one of those Gto Engineering Squalos is beyond me. Or if you just are a normal person, just buy a nice tidy Ferrari 550, save yourself a lot of cash, and, you know, don't pretend that you're living in the 1960s. I was also talking about that Genesis G70 shooting brake. I know they brought out some other stuff. I think it was the G80. But they brought out a big saloon car along with a giant SUV, which, to be honest with you, didn't pique my interest in any way. But this shooting brake, I hate to be cynical about it, because more high-end, which for starters, the shooting brake thing. A shooting brake is a two-door, swept-tailed, estate-esque body. If a car has an estate body and it has 5 doors, it's an estate. It's not a shooting brake. Just putting that out there. This G70 shooting brake, I said, I hate to be too cynical about it, because more estate cars, the better. More salubrious estate cars, the better. The front grille, for starters, on the Genesis doesn't float my boat. It's too bling. There's just a bit too many design elements from other cars, most notably Bentley. In the G70, the oval shaped exhaust tips and the little vent behind the front wheel arch. And would I have one over, say, a VW Arteon shooting brake again? The liberal use of the shooting brake term, probably not. Would I have either of them? Probably not. But it's not a bad car. You know, one thing will be sure, it'll be reliable, because it's essentially a Hyundai. I know, looks are subjective, but all in, it's not a bad looking car, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who love it. It seems to be, from what I've seen on social media, people are people are very warm and receptive to it. So while it wouldn't be for me, fair play to Genesis for bringing us another fancy estate car and not another crossover EV. Caterham announced during the week, there's a nice 190e, very tidy 190e. There's the one thing about doing this podcast from behind the wheel is I'm not going to be able to get any pictures really of anything anything fancy I see, because you're not allowed to use your phone when you're driving. Safety first. Yeah, the Caterham have come out and said by 2023 there will be an electric Caterham 7, which is intriguing, depending on how they deliver the product. Because obviously the one thing about a Caterham is it's lightweight. Now, as well, obviously, Caterhams, the engines aren't exactly what you would call exotic motors. I think most recently they've been using EcoBoost. Have they been using EcoBoost Fords or Duratec Ford engines? But they've always usually been pretty run-of-the-mill 4-cylinders, off-the-shelf 4-cylinders that have been tweaked to get a bit more performance out of them. Yeah, while they're not exotic engines, again, look, I've never driven a Caterham, unfortunately. I would love to. I imagine the vibrations, the sounds, the smells of an internal combustion engine is very much a part of the pantomime and the enjoyment of driving a Caterham. But an electric one will be in it because you'd have to assume it's going to be heavier, because batteries and electric motors are just heavy by nature. And it's going to be silent. There's going to be no gear change. But I know, look, if the company's going to survive, I assume they have to at least entertain the idea of an electric vehicle. But it certainly raised my eyebrows when I read the story. But we shall see. Again, I'm going to try and not be too cynical and wait and see what they deliver. Who knows? Maybe it's the electric sports car we've all been waiting for. While people are singing the praises of stuff like the Taycan and the e-tron GT RS, they're still not small, nimble, lightweight sports cars. So yeah, okay. Let's see what Caterham can do for us, because if it means Caterham survives long term, and they also get to continue making internal combustion versions alongside the EV versions, yeah, I'm all for that. Not a whole load of new car news reviews since I last spoke to you, but one thing I did read was the legend that is Steve Sutcliffe for Evo drove I think what the full name of it is the Cupra Leon 300 TSI, I think is what it's called. So basically it's the Mark 8 Golf Club Sport, but the Cupra Leon version of it, which essentially is a Seat and the Cupra sub-brand being their sporty one. I'm not going to get into that conversation again. But the takeaway I took from it was the Seat Cupras of old. You always got a little bit more performance than the equivalent Golf, and the trade-off was maybe it wasn't quite as refined as a Golf. Whereas now there's a lot more ubiquity to the performance Volkswagens. Obviously, they all use the same engine, the E888 2-litre, which is an Evo 3 guys, Evo 4 guys at this point. Look, a well-respected engine, and certainly an effective engine. But the thing, this TSI has the same power, has the same torque as the Golf Club Sport, and all the oily bits are all the same as the Golf. But Mr. Sutcliffe, who I would very much respect and appreciate his opinion. He's a great helmsman, and he knows his stuff. He's plenty of experience. He said dynamically it's a step above the Golf. It's just it has more steering feel. The chassis is more playful. There just seems to be more throttle response, and obviously it undercuts the Golf by about, I think sterling wise, it undercuts it by about $5,000. So you're pushing 10 if you convert that to euro. I think it's a better looking car than the Golf. Now the one they tested had like this matte graphene blue wrap paint on it, which is an option thankfully, and these strange bronzed wheels, which seems to be a character of Cupra, bronzing things with the stupid badge that they have. Wish they were called Seats. But yeah, so if you're in the market for a 300 horsepower hot hatchback, don't get the Golf, get the Seat. And just a side note from something I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, possibly the last episode, about pop-up headlights. A mate of mine, Shane, as I'm sure you're all aware of Shane on social media, he bought a Mazda 323 with the pop-up headlights. And I was talking about how pop-up headlights are, every car that should have pop-up headlights should. Unfortunately, they've been outlawed. As I said, I think it was because of the American market. But then I was thinking it was actually because Harry Metcalf put up one of his Silverstone auction walk-around videos just yesterday. And he walks by a 930 Turbo that has some very, very well-respected Porsche customer. Special requested, he wanted all of the aesthetics of the 930 slant nose, but he didn't want the slant nose. He wanted the old, not the old, but the more standard fixed circular headlights. And it did make me realise that as much as I love pop-up headlights on cars, the one exception is the 930 slant nose. I just think, oh, there's an Alpha 166 first gen. God, I love those. That looks like a minty one as well. You can tell that man appreciates the car. Oh, I'd love one. I would. It'd be a risky purchase, but oh, I would love one. What was I talking about? Yeah, the slant nose. The 930 slant nose. The pop-up headlights in that, to me, just don't work. The whole car just, with all its vents and slats and stuff, it's just a little bit too 80s. Not even cool 80s. So seeing that one with circular headlights was cool. So I think the slant nose 911 is the one exception to the rule where I would prefer it to have its regular headlights, regular circular fixed headlights and the pop-ups. And I put this on Instagram yesterday. And thankfully, I haven't actually checked the results since yesterday. But when I checked on it last night, it was I think it was a 63-37 split for agreeing with me that yes, the 930 slant nose isn't a particularly attractive looking car. And probably the greatest thing to happen since I last spoke to you guys was McLaren showcased a special edition livery that they have for this weekend's upcoming Monaco Grand Prix. I won't talk too much about Formula 1 and the Monaco Grand Prix because no doubt I'll do another episode of this amazing podcast before the weekend. So I'll do a bit of a rundown preview of the Monaco Grand Prix probably before then. But they've released this limited edition livery because one of their new sponsors that signed up with them for this season is Gulf. Gulf being a multinational oil company. But sorry, I was going through the moral dilemma of, being a motorsport enthusiast and then supporting polluting oil companies. And I'm not going to get into that moral debate. But one thing we can all agree on is the Gulf colours are possibly the best colour combination livery in motorsport. There are obviously many contenders for that role, for that title, but the Gulf colours are cool. So for the Monaco Grand Prix, the McLaren team, the team wear, it's going to be the beautiful powder blue and orange of the Gulf colours. And I think the universal joy when we all saw it coming, when we all saw that launched yesterday, no one could say a bad word about there being a Gulf liveried Formula 1 car because it's been a long time. I can't even remember the last time there was a Gulf Formula 1 car. It must be the 70s. Of course, I jumped straight onto the McLaren website. I was like, oh, I'd love some Gulf McLaren memorabilia. And then I realised, wow, those prices are outrageous. And two, while I do have some old Formula 1 apparel that I wear occasionally, I find it very hard to wear this stuff in public, being a walking, talking billboard, which is a bit hypocritical as I currently talk to you. I'm wearing a Ferrari polo shirt and I'm also wearing Formula 1 themed socks. But at least the polo shirt, it's a late 90s Michael Schumacher Ferrari polo shirt, and it only has the Ferrari crest on it, so there are no other, there's no Marlboro or Shell or any of that stuff on it. So it's not really a billboard. It's a proper fan polo shirt. And the socks I'm wearing are from the Benetton B186 from 1986, Goodyear. And also it doesn't have any of the sponsor decals on it. It's just the United Colours of Benetton livery on some socks, which are cool. If you want some really fancy, ludicrously vibrant motorsport themed socks, I highly recommend Heel Thread or Heel Tread. Google it, it'll come up. They do a wide variety of motorsport and car related socks, and they often have a sale on. I only ever buy them when they're on sale, because I think at normal price a pair of socks I think is about a tenner, maybe more than that, maybe 15. But they often have sales, so when the sales pop up, you can get pairs for like a $5 and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, side note. Yeah, so the McLaren Gulf colours, that's great. And unfortunately, it's only going to be for one race, but at least it's for the jewel in the crown that is that is the Monaco Grand Prix, which again I said I will talk about in further detail in possibly my next episode. The only other motorsport news I will discuss is slightly, it's not from 4 wheels to 2, the MotoGP yesterday. I've always kept my toe in the water with the MotoGP, but this year I've really made a concerted effort to try and watch all of the races, and I have so far this season. Yesterday's race was at Le Mans, which as a diehard Le Mans viewer for the last, couple of decades, seeing motorbikes go around the Le Mans track was interesting. And also from the first lap I was like, where are they going? Oh yeah, of course they're using a shortened version of the track. But yeah, what a crazy race. If you can somehow watch back yesterday's MotoGP race, I would highly recommend it, because from start to finish it was just insane. It was kind of cloudy and overcast at Circuit de la Sarthe, and the weather forecast was saying that rain was forecast for in and around the end of the race, maybe probably afterwards. 5 minutes into the race and it starts absolutely pissing down, and they all had to run in and swap bikes, because obviously you can't change wheels on a bike. They just have to jump on another version of their mechanical horse with wet wear tires on it, and then just chaos ensued. Young title contender, and he's currently the leader of the championship, Fabio Cuatro. He was on pole. He lost the lead at the start. I think, who got into the lead at first? I think it may have been, I can't remember if Jack Miller took it from the start. Anyway, the lead changed several times. Then when the rain started coming down, everyone dived into the pits in and around the same time to swap their bikes. And in that melee, the returning, the returning Matador, Spanish multiple MotoGP champion, Marc Marquez, who's returned this year after, it must have been 18 months on the sidelines after he broke his collarbone. And it's taken him a couple of races to get back up to speed, but he qualified well for this racing. But anyway, in the melee he was 4th going into the pits, and his quick reactions, man, he came out in the lead after all the bikes had been swapped around, and he absolutely started monstering the lap times. He pulled out a serious gap, and it looked like he might have had it in the bag. And then, being Marc Marquez, he was really pushing the limits, and on a wet track he had a high side, a pretty violent high side, and he hit the ground pretty hard again on that collarbone that he broke not so long ago. But he managed to get the bike back up and continue. He managed to continue, but he was well down the order. I think he went down as far as 15th or 16th. And he did have a lot of pace though once he got back up going, because I think he was over a second and a half quicker than anyone else on the track. It looked like he was closing up on everyone. He wasn't going to get back to the lead with the amount of laps that was remaining, but it looked like he might have been able to really get himself up into the high points positions. But then he dropped it again, and when he dropped it the second time, that was it. He just, there was no getting back from that one. So good to see Marc Marquez is definitely competitive. The man is back, but a scrappy weekend from him. So he'll be looking to put that one behind him. Anyway, then after Marquez went out, it was kind of a battle between Quartararo and Miller. Miller got ahead of Quartararo, and then just he pulled out about a 5-second gap, and he kept it that way. And then I think Johan Zarco got by Quartararo as well, and then Zarco was catching Miller, but Miller was just about able to manage the race from the front. And Jack Miller took his second race win in a row, with Quartararo finishing 3rd and Bagnaia. I think Bagnaia qualified horribly, and then by the start I think he was down 20th, but I think he managed to get himself up to about 6th or 7th. The way the points were dispersed, and the way the championship is now shuffled, Quartararo is now back in the lead of the championship by a point, I think it is. And then the next round is in Mugello, which essentially is Ducati's home race. So the Ducati always goes well there. And you'd be a brave man not to bet against possibly Jack Miller doing 3 in a row, because the Ducati is going to go well. Sorry, I'm just going to park my Ford Focus. There's a nice Alpha 159. Is that a fancy one? If it is, I'll take a snap of it. If it isn't, you won't see it. Look at that for some parallel parking. they can't teach that. So I'll finish up here now in a moment before I go in and get my delightful cup of Java from Third Floor Espresso here, possibly a croissant. Well, there's a nice, like bright, vibrant green Saab 9.3 convertible with the roof up. Why you buy a convertible in this country and not put the roof down at every possible opportunity. What was I talking about? Yeah, so yeah, the MotoGP, the next race should be. I would highly recommend, if you're not watching the MotoGP, to get into it and try and catch yesterday's race, because it was crazy from start to finish. And just another motorsport point, which Roman Grosjean, now sadly for the ex-Formula 1 driver. If you're unaware of the name, I'm sure you probably saw at the end of last season, the second last race of the year at Bahrain, he had a massive crash and his car turned into a ball of flames, and he was trapped inside the car, and he managed to pull himself out, and he managed to suffer some burns to his hands and feet and stuff, but to see him walk away was a miracle. But he's now gone to IndyCar, and he's only in his third race in the IndyCar Championship for one of the more backmarker teams. I can't remember the name of the team he's driving for, because I don't have my finger fully on the pulse when it comes to the IndyCar Championship. But he managed to put the car on. It was at Indianapolis, the IndyCar race, surprisingly enough. But the road course in Indianapolis, not the oval, because I think Grosjean's only going to be doing road courses, because he quite rightly knows that oval racing can be somewhat I say somewhat very lightly. Oval racing, it can be, if you have an accident on an oval, it's not going to be slow speed, put it that way. But yeah, he managed to qualify on pole as a rookie, which is amazing. And the team he drives for is one of the more, wouldn't be one of the front running teams, even though IndyCar is essentially a spec championship, a spec series. It's one of the teams with lesser resources. But he put it on pole. Now I only managed to tune into the race halfway through, because it was on Saturday evening, which as a European Formula 1 enthusiast confused the hell out of me. I assumed the race was on the Sunday, but I managed to tune in halfway through, and he was in second, and he was catching VK, the Dutchman VK, whose first name again escapes me, who was in first position. He didn't quite manage to catch your man VK, and your man VK took his first win, essentially the Max Verstappen of IndyCar, but Grosjean finished second, which is absolutely great to see, because after what happened to Grosjean last year and how his Formula 1 career didn't quite go to plan, it's nice to see him getting some success, and I hope he continues that way. As I said, he's not the Indy 500. I think it's the next race, the infamous Indy 500, which he won't be competing in if my knowledge is correct. As I said, he's not doing the ovals, but he definitely does seem to believe he's going to be doing a long-term career over in the States. So maybe he'll change his tune maybe for next season and do a full campaign, both road courses and ovals. Because it would be great to see Roman Grosjean have a international championship to his name. Obviously, he has a few from his junior career, but it's just great to see him. He was so close to possible death. There's a Taycan. Yeah, that's a nice one, like kind of graphite grey Taycan. It was great to see Grosjean doing so well. And I hope that continues for him. I'm gonna wrap up now. Again, I know maybe driving and podcasting isn't a great idea. But I don't think this is one of my best episodes. But I will keep making them, and I'll keep pumping them out, because that's how if you don't do, you will not succeed, or whatever, some sort of philosophical bollocks I'm trying to communicate to you here. But no, thanks to everyone who has been listening, and I'm going to keep them up. And also thanks to everyone who said nice things about some of the videos I've been putting up. People seem to have enjoyed the really shitty little short car spotting videos I've been putting up recently. But yeah, no, thanks to everyone who's been listening or watching the things I've been doing. It's very encouraging, and you've all been very kind, and all the constructive feedback is taken on board. And I hope to, as I will keep doing it, and I will hopefully try and improve. But yeah, thank you all very much. So I'll wrap it up here now. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.